Hello, everyone. This is the second of these conversations that we're doing with Create Interesting Music and guest artists who are coming in to do workshops with our students. The following is a conversation with Lila Smith, who's a fantastic songwriter, vocalist, and also an improviser, an incredible improviser, and a visual artist who has made a lot of progress in the LA music scene and really is sort of coming up as a recording artist right now. I've known Lila for probably like 7 or 8 years at this point, and I think this is a great conversation. You can tell that we're having fun in it. So, hope you enjoy, hope it helps, and check out the offers below. There's some information about how to join Create Interesting Music, and there's also some information about the Create Interesting Music Dispatch, which is a Substack with tips for creative music makers. Let's jump into it. And yeah, in the comments, like, let me know what you think. I'm kind of learning about where to take these conversations. So, hope it helps.
Hi,
Hey,
hello.
yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Welcome to my extremely minimalist life setup right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much still unpacking, and I was kind of thinking about how all of my material objects are packed away, but I kind of feel like my thoughts and ideas are also sort of packed away. It's like
Mm.
this thing of transitional liminal moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's awesome though. So you're back in LA. You've moved back to LA.
I've moved back. Yeah. Um, And what is there to say about Los Angeles? It's like 85 degrees today. Is it cold in New York?
Yeah, it's been raining on and off. I'm into it though. I'm like kind of a fall person. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, the passage of time is important. I always think about how all the big box stores or just like whatever department stores like Target, they really have to mark the passage of time for us, you know?
Yeah. I started
And
seeing the
I
Christmas decorations and stuff going up already, and it's November 10th, and I'm like, wow, we're already there.
yeah, totally. Yeah. You know this like weird thing about how a lot of people's kind of down regulating space is a target. Like they like the sort of consumption space of time being regulated for them.
I
Have
could
you
s-
encountered this with people?
I could see that. I don't know if I've directly encountered it, but it makes sense that it would exist.
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
hello.
yeah. Hello. Welcome. Yeah. Okay. So I guess general yeah, wow, I'm excited. It's good to see you.
I know, I'm stoked.
Yeah, and this is the second one of these conversations. The first one
Cool.
was with Drew Waselli, who's very doing very different stuff than you. He went to NEC, or
Cool.
they went to NEC.
Cool.
They're doing a lot of stuff in like the free improvisation scene in New York. And we talked a lot about that, and they did a workshop with my students on like free improvisation and
Hell
stuff.
yeah.
It was kind of like advanced. Like Drew was like not lowering the bar for rigor, and people were like meeting it, which was really awesome. So yeah, so the general idea with these conversations is that they're kind of intended for people who are making music.
Mhm.
Um, they're for people who might not necessarily have gone to music school, although if people who have gone to music school get stuff from this, that's also great. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it's kind of like looking inside the process and making some sense of how this stuff goes, hopefully in ways that are actually going to like help people make stuff.
Cool.
Uh, yeah. And so I was thinking for a start point, we could talk about your recent work like as a songwriter.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, and so I guess I'm thinking about talking about the singles that you've put out
Yeah.
recently and kind of like the pathway that led you to them. And
Mm.
so I don't think we need to start this from like where were you born and what year and stuff, but yeah, like I think there's sort of a prehistory here, which is that you also did a lot in the world of jazz,
Yeah.
including some really crazy, like very avant-garde stuff,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I guess for the sake of the recording, I'll mention like that I remember seeing the band that you were in that was
Yeah.
like playing Braxton's music at like a house show in Cambridge, Mass, like late 2019, and it was awesome.
Thanks,
So
dude.
yeah, and so I guess I'd love to hear about where songwriting kind of started for you, like what it was
Mm.
like starting to enter into songwriting.
Uh, that is a very interesting question. Hmm. I mean, I think growing up as a jazz singer, there always seemed to be this tension between like um jazz as an instrumental practice versus jazz as a vocal practice. And I think like of course the people who are like really high level, they understand that these are not a dichotomy, that like, you know, every instrumentalist should know the lyrics, every singer should know the change, you know, whatever, like stupid shit like that. But yeah, I think of course, just like singing the Great American Songbook and really learning to be a vessel for the song and the story. I don't know. Yeah, it set me up to want to be a songwriter, I suppose. Um, I think when I was at Harvard, I was probably too deep into like making things overwrought and conceptual and like trying to find ways to be formally interesting with songwriting and whatever. And then I had this whole kind of like backswing of, whoa, I just need to get back to like telling a story and sort of like being in touch with a feeling in a more intuitive way. And so yeah, I like moved my butt to LA and made friends with songwriters, saw how they were doing it, started to understand how they understood their craft. I think for me, the way we've talked about this, but like the way that I relate to my songwriting is very spontaneous and intuitive. I really
Mhm.
try to not overthink it. I let myself overthink plenty of other things in my artistic practice, but I think for me, um, I have this like and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, but I feel this weird repulsion around like music that feels overwrought. And I sense
Mhm.
it musically, I sense it lyrically, in my own music and other people's music. Um, and so, yeah, I really find myself like 80% of the time going with like my first draft of lyrics. Maybe like in terms of song form, and like the orders of melodies and that sort of stuff, like I do spend more time on that. Um, but yeah, I think I'm still very much in this kind of like intuitive, spontaneous way of songwriting. Um, for me, um I am someone where if something is inspiring to me in the moment, it will like open a channel in me and I will like begin to hear other melodies. Has this happened to you where you go to a concert that is like really working for you and you start to like hear unrelated melodies? Does this happen to you?
I don't know, probably. Maybe not for a
Yeah.
while though. I feel like I don't know, I've been working my process lately and I'm gonna
Mhm.
trying to get back to that.
Cool.
But this is great. I'm loving hearing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when something is really working for me, which like it can be listening to a new record in the car, it can be being at a show, sometimes with visual art, but like just anything that inspires me basically. Like it'll just usually like open something up in me. And I'll start to like hear some words or I'll start to hear a melody. And I find that it's usually those ideas that I like the most, and then I'll just like finish writing a song on it. The first
Mhm.
song I put out, I wrote in about 5 minutes in a bathroom in a restaurant. Um, yeah. The second song
Wow.
I put
Actually, wait, just to jump into that, because
yeah.
that's amazing. What does that mean? Like
What
when
is
you wrote it, so at the end of the 5 minutes, what did you have? Because like I mentioned this because I have a the song that opens up my first record of songs,
Yeah.
Torso. It's a song called Sudden Red, Gentle Green.
Yeah.
The story that I kind of have about it is that I wrote it in like 45 minutes or something, like kind of out of nowhere.
Mhm.
But then producing it took a really long time. But I
Yeah.
had kind of the core acoustic guitar and vocals part like for years. And so there's like kind of a funny like split there where it's like
Yeah.
immediate acoustic guitar and vocals and then like 5 years of producing it or something like that, which I'll never do again. But anyway, yeah. So I'm just curious, like with the fast writing, like what that means for you. Like you had like a vocal melody and like an idea for a riff because you probably didn't have like a guitar in this
No.
restaurant bathroom. Yeah.
Definitely not. No, but I did have I had the guitar riff in mind,
Mhm.
um, which was basically like an offset version of something I had recently listened to.
Mhm.
Um, and I really liked that thing. At the same time, I've been listening to a bunch of girl pool, so I kind of had this like whiny thing in my brain. And also I was really mad at my boss at the time. And all of that just coalesced in me writing the whole first verse. So yeah, once we get to like the heavy guitar section where there's no vocal, that was the moment of like we started sitting down and producing it. I think that night. But yeah, I basically had the whole first two verses of melody and lyrics.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, and I'd love to you started to talk about the second song. I'd love to talk about that in a little bit, but I'm also wondering um yeah, because I mean something that you and I have talked about in the past is that, you were involved in other projects before putting out your own stuff under your own name.
Yeah.
For a while there was another name for your solo project. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, like with the wave of singles that kind of began like the Laila Smith that now exists on the internet as like a songwriter, like was there a clear start point where you were like, I want to start a body of work, or was it kind of like a transition? Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about that.
Yeah, good question. So I would say the project that I was doing, my first project that I was working on when I was living in LA, that was kind of like duo bedroom pop project. And I think that was
Mhm.
really me and my collaborator just like trying to figure out um, how do we make recorded music? And yeah, I really think of that as just like a time of learning processes and etudes and like just kind of getting in the scene. Um, I don't think either of us really personally related to that music, which I know sounds crazy and taboo to say. But it was just like, we grew up making live performed music. We grew up making
Yeah.
improvised music. Like recorded music is a totally different bag. And for people who would like intuitively understand recorded music, like more power to you. But I mean, yeah, I still feel like I'm learning how to give mixed notes, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a totally different part of the brain. And also singing. Singing as a live performer is like recorded music requires a totally different way of singing, in my opinion. Do you find this?
Um, I'd say yes, but wow, it's so yeah, I'm just like still drinking in so many other things that you just said, but yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think for me, um it was through recording that I started to take my voice really, like my
Mhm.
physical voice, really seriously.
Cool.
Also,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm like fighting a cold, but it's all
Oh
good.
no, I'm
It's not that
sorry.
bad. I'm just like pounding supplements and like periodically remembering that I'm still fighting a cold, but I feel fine otherwise. Yeah, so like I mean for me it was just so like trying to make recordings sound right and like
Mhm.
doing tons and tons and tons and tons of vocal takes and eventually having that be like I need to like oh I need to start doing warm-ups or whatever. I also have a bunch of questions about your like about vocal stuff that maybe we'll get
Yeah.
to later.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So for me, I mean, yeah, ultimately, I feel like live singing for me is like a very low resolution version of what I do in the studio. And I actually need to work on that. Like I something that
Mm.
I've been mentioning to one of my students who um is putting on a lot like putting out a lot of singles right now is I'm just like, oh my God, I've been doing so much other stuff for the last like year that my voice isn't where I'd like it to be right now. It hasn't been
Mhm.
a priority. I'm working a lot like on a lot of instrumental music and doing the teaching stuff, and so it's like it's all good. But I'm just entering into a phase right now. I'm going to need to prioritize my voice
Yeah.
again, which is
Yeah.
exciting. But anyway, yeah. So learning
Yeah.
to record music as like yeah as being different than live performance is what we're
Yeah,
doing.
totally. Just on that, like the voice really is such a muscle and you have to run it. I literally think of it as like
Yeah,
you have to run your laps every day. And you totally feel it in like the level of precision. It's crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, making recorded music. And then essentially I want to say like 3 years ago, I just started to write different stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, no, I think I think like the bedroom pop project, like as necessary as it was, I always just like felt in tension with it. Also because of like the visual world of it. And I think still to this day I really struggle with like the me that I am versus the me on the internet and like where that divide is. And maybe I just need to get more into the idea that like my subjectivity is itself synthetic. Like, why am I so obsessed with the real? But uh, but yeah, it just never totally felt right to me, and I think I just like naturally, as part of this tension, started writing some different music with my collaborator. Um, and also that music was personal. It was about something really important to me. And basically I have this like body of forthcoming work that is about um, a particular relationship that I had, and power and like sexual violence, to put it bluntly. Um, and yeah, obviously it just didn't belong in the bedroom pop project. And I think we just kept writing that music and we were like, oh, we like this music more. Um, and yeah, I guess that was the start of it. I guess that was the start of it. But in terms of like then coming into the beginning of this year and starting to release music under my name, um, that came out of this whole like internal battle around, again, we've talked about this, but around the right ways to release music, and just really freeing myself of all of the right ways of doing things. Like to my friends in New York, I think like you are used to having your own ways and just like, you know, yeah, like doing things in a super cool DIY way. And I think I'd been living in LA and, things are super structured out here, right? Like everyone has a team, everyone has a creative director. It's like really intense. And you do your release show in a specific way, and then you like follow up with the influencers in a specific, like there are all these ways. And I guess I had to move to New York to just like free myself of all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think I'd been kind of thinking about how I wanted to release this music, and I'd been sort of like, oh, like I guess I should try to split the difference and give people a release show that's like more normal or whatever. And I don't know, I just kind of slept on it and I was like, what am I talking about? Like the only way I can do this is if I do it as me. Um,
Yeah.
and as it turned out, people liked it. So yeah.
Yeah. And so to dig into that a little bit more, um, I guess I have like a two-part question. The first of which is, what is putting out music the right way? And then second, maybe it's not a question. I have a lot of little questions about the way that you've been approaching releasing music. So I think it's really distinctive and
Thanks.
special. But yeah, so as far as like the right way to release music, or I'll put it like in scare quotes, speaking as somebody who's been on the New York scene, which is just a very DIY
Mhm.
space, maybe a lot of people here would be more interested in like what is the right way to do things. I'd love to hear a little bit about like what the right way to release music is that you've
Yeah.
encountered in the LA scene.
Yeah. When I first got to LA, our lawyer described it as like different levers, and I still think that's how I see it in my head. And I think like the levers or the buckets are like kind of constantly shifting in my brain, but um, there is the digital marketing aspect, and that can be, a huge category that we can get into because I know that you're thinking a lot about this too. And like
Yeah.
I really appreciated our last conversation about this. Um, there's the live aspect, and that also can have like lots of different levers. Also, like all of these things have ways of hooking up, right? Like when you do a show, you're eventually hoping that you can like feed someone into your digital presence so that they have like a way to keep in touch with you. So like, how do you go about that? Um, you have merch and physical sales of things. Um, when I did like a little bit of work for a cool digital marketing company, and they were really geared toward like the small mid to like mid-level artist and how to make their practice sustainable. And like merch is a big part of that. I don't think people really think about that, but like, taking in money through t-shirt sales can like actually help you live.
Yeah.
Um, because streaming obviously sucks. Uh, yeah, what else? Oh yeah, just like all kinds of campaigns. In LA, we call them activations.
Mhm.
So yeah, so like I didn't realize there was a whole language for this. But like basically the conceit of my project is that whenever I put out a piece of music, I also put out a companion art piece. So for my first single, I did this like crazy installation. which was video and projection art in addition to like some physical installation stuff. Um, for my second single, I worked with my creative team. Huge shout out to Andrew Boylan, Jamin Reyes, Natalie Chen, and we made a video game together. Um, and that song was called, I'm sure we'll get into this, but that song was called Diorama. And so we made the diorama playable basically.
Mhm.
Um, and then for my third single, I did this like crazy large scale installation where again we did I think I'm interested in, synthetic digital life. And yeah, like interfacing with the real, the physical. Um and so yeah, we created like an actual yellow payphone, um, and like stuck an Arduino into it, and basically it had this like responsive thing where you could talk to it. It would ask you a series of questions. That was called the denial payphone because the song was about denial. And we also put up a bunch of like freaky billboards in LA.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's how my project works. In like LA lingo, you would call those activations. I just
Mhm.
thought of them as like digital and physical installations.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think like, just as an artist, it's like you're seeking more ways to explore the ideas. And I think because my relationship to music is so spontaneous, I like needed these other ways to ground myself in the art.
Yeah. Um, yeah, wow. I've got a few questions from there. The first one, which is a pretty like low level kind of like functional question, is like if somebody is trying to get more serious about releasing music and they want to learn more about, this whole like way of doing things and thinking about things,
Mm.
are there like resources that you're aware of that you might point somebody towards? And, no pressure if you like because there are some things you just soak in from being in a space,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that is such a good question. I don't have like an online or a book resource to point
Yeah, yeah.
to. Um, I do think like your community friends. I would also say like there are basically like there are lots of like normal people jobbing
Mhm.
musicians in music and LA, like if people are specifically curious about how this stuff works. Um, And I think talking to those kinds of people is super easy. It's not all like, so this is the dumbest example, but it's not all like Diplo, you know what I mean? Like there are
Yeah,
lots
yeah.
of like lower level producers who like, but like they're making a real living working with real artists. They're just not like famous. And and I think specifically in terms of releasing music, like, you know, small to mid-level artists that you think are really dope, I'm sure like yeah, I think like relying on your artist community is something that I'm trying to get more into as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I pass on that advice to others.
Totally. Okay, and so then if we look at the other side of it, which is the fact that, this like kind of traditional, as you were encountering it, like, I don't know, LA style activation releases,
Yeah.
like there were things about that that were not quite right for you. And so that
Yeah.
led to you, um, I don't know. Like actually this leads to another question. I was gonna say like re-engaging with a visual art practice, but this is another thing where I wonder about the roots of it. But that's gonna have to be a couple questions down. So let's
Yeah.
start with like, okay, so what was it that led you kind of away from this more kind of traditional like release structure and more towards what you're doing, yeah, more towards what you're doing now.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm self-romanticizing by doing this, but by saying this, but like what I want to say is like there was no other choice for me, in the sense that like I like physically couldn't make myself do what the other artists do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like realized that if I was gonna really do it and get myself to do it, I had to do it my way.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like there are probably some personal things that go along with this. Like I've been through a whole bunch of life shifts in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And it is those points of like breakages and just like surrender to life, I think that
Mhm.
bring you to these moments of bravery of like, okay, here I go.
Yeah. Okay, and so then to get more into like the visual side of things, Yeah, I guess I'm wondering about the roots of this more kind of like visual thinking or like
Yeah.
installation sculptural thinking or like performance, almost like
Yeah.
acting thinking. I'm curious like whether there were roots for that that kind of came up in your life before this era.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, like if so, what were those like? And if not, excuse me, sorry, what was it like getting started? Yeah, like what was it like getting started with this stuff?
Yeah. Uh, my gosh. Um, yeah, I'm like, how do I even answer this?
I'll say like for just like timeline big picture is like totally cool. As far as
Yeah.
like the details of what you're doing,
Yeah.
um it could be cool to talk about that like in a little bit, but
Yeah.
this isn't like a walk me through the nuances of each installation or anything like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I think I think I've like I don't know. I think through the Great American Songbook, I was just and like being exposed to it at such a young age, I just became interested in like the intensity of emotions. Like why am I 8 years old singing Black Coffee? Like what, but like I just was really into it. And I was into the idea that I could like simulate these kinds of emotions. And I think that sort of like led me into an interest in performance art, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think I had some like key intervention mentors in my younger years. So like
Hmm.
something that comes to mind is I had a few opportunities to do workshops with Theo Bleckmann.
Oh yeah.
Um, and he was really like, um, yeah, I think like he was probably the first person to like teach me about commitment to like art and
Yeah.
moving through the weirdness, the weird feelings of performance. Like I feel like all great performance artists, that's kind of how they train you, is like you have to surrender, you have to let go. Um,
Yeah, I would love to dig into that a
mm,
little bit more. And I saw Theo Blackman play, I guess it's a little bit over a month ago, but he has a
mm,
duo with my friend Joe Bransiford,
cool.
who also
Yeah.
actually did a workshop recently with like create interesting music students, which is super cool. Um, and yeah, Joe is like this super badass, amazing like engineer, like Grammy Award winning, like recording engineer and electronic musician and stuff. Like, do you know the Gray Fade
No.
label? No. Okay, cool. I'll send. Yeah, he's really cool. But
Show me,
anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So he has a duo with Theo Bleckman, and I saw them, and yeah, just like Theo's commitment to every
Yeah.
musical decision on every level, like not just like sonically, but even like body language was like
Yes. Yes.
really intense, and like I want to get there. Like it's its own thing. Yeah. So I'd love to hear about what you took away from that, or how like if there were any realizations that came from that encounter.
I mean, I think just um having those opportunities to be in spaces with him from a young age, like that was just a time when I was still learning and very much forming as a person. And I think like because I got to like encounter him a number of times, um yeah, I was able to like grow up through it a little bit and like really understand what it means in my bones. And I think we're always still working on like committing to the art. I don't know if actually this is something that's kind of interesting. Like, this like I've seen this in both New York and LA, but there are these like really just like indie ass guys, and their whole bit is that they're like uncommitted. It just
Yeah.
like doesn't appeal to me
Yeah,
artistically,
yeah,
but like these are really cool guys,
yeah,
Like what's the deal? Uh sorry, yeah, just I guess just a bit of yeah of back chat for me. But yeah, I feel like I don't have like um I don't have a good answer to this other than just like
yeah,
yeah, just like local workshops at my local music, community spaces.
yeah,
And just like wanting to continue to experience him and yeah, just having an interest in like weird performance art music. Um and then yeah, I think like winding up at Harvard, and honestly, like I don't think I was really exposed to anything having to do with fine art before I got to Harvard. Um, Also, my ex's dad was a painter, and so I just like soaked it all in. I soaked in
Yeah.
all of this like fine art stuff,
Hmm.
learned a lot about how to talk about it, um, but like made it my own at the same time. Like really just absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I have any of the right ways of speaking about it to this day, but like I know that
Yeah.
I have my own language and it works for me.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So there was kind of like an earlier engagement with performance and just like
Mhm.
really committing to a performance,
Yeah.
and then the engagement with like visual art showed up later, like college
Yeah.
age. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also I'm kind of shifting a little bit out of like asking nuanced questions about
Yeah.
different stages of the learning process, but like yeah, one of the things that I struggle with is like I mean I think it's fine for people who are casual musicians to be like casual musicians, but the thing
Mhm.
that I struggle with is when there's like really intense ego about
Mm.
things that don't take very much effort to like achieve. um it's like and I can kind of deal with ego if the person has done something like incredible.
Right.
um like I mean I don't know, as I'm having this conversation I'm also figuring out how much this is like I'm thinking about my students, but then you're also like a recording artist and I'm like a recording artist, and so I'm like navigating these different relationships to like
Yeah.
having a conversation. But I
Yeah.
saw and this is going a positive direction, this is not shade in any way, but I saw Mark Z Danielewski give like a reading, or
Uh,
Danielewski give a reading. He's the guy who wrote House of Leaves.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you ever encountered that book,
I
but
didn't read it, but yes, I
okay,
know it is. Yeah.
it's a crazy book. Yeah, and like when he was giving this talk I was realizing like in a way from the beginning I was like, oh, he's like in character a little bit as like
Mm,
a great artist, and
yeah.
there's this really intense like seriousness that comes with that. But the other thing is that I think he's earned it. Like he just finished a book that he was spending like 10 hours a day writing for like 5 years, and like it's
Yeah.
like 1,200 pages long, and like
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, this if there's ego here it's pretty earned. Like
Yeah.
I'll take it. And then the way that he was talking to people in the audience was just like so respectful. There was like a 21-year-old writer who was like, I want to write, like I'm trying to do it, I have these questions, and
Yeah.
like whether it was her or like somebody in the audience who was clearly like not in the fine art world or in the literary world, it was really like a more like kind of mass market like fan, was
Mhm.
asking a question that was a little bit more like basic about the writing process.
Yeah.
And he had a way of like welcoming her into the space and like welcoming her into the conversation, that was tremendously like respectful. And so it's really cool when this sort of like, if there is some self-seriousness, it's or maybe ego, and I think there's a line between ego and self-seriousness, but that's a
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
that's leading us outside of a create interesting music conversation maybe. Like I think it has to do with love for the work instead of the sort of like propping
Yeah.
oneself up, and I think that, yeah, so anyway I think there's room for it.
Mhm.
But when I encounter really intense like ego from people who don't seem to be trying very hard,
Yeah.
that's where I kind of struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Reflections
Yeah.
on the scene.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit about like with the visual art stuff that's
Yeah.
accompanied the Lila Smith releases. And I keep asking, how did things begin? But
Yeah.
I spent so much time talking about how to begin with
How to
people
begin.
who are beginning, but
Hmm.
really care. So I'm wondering, as you started to build out this visual world, what was step one? And was step one like walking down the street and having an idea pop into your head? Was there like a deliberate sitting down to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, great, great question. Yeah. How do you begin? Um, I think I can like actually point to some concrete things that I always do when I'm working on a project. Um, So I am someone who really struggles with decision fatigue. I think a lot of artists do.
Yeah.
Like you're making so many decisions about all the little things in your project all the time. Um, and so what I tend to do for all of my large scale projects is make a framework. Um, yeah, like for the diorama, I literally made this whole like based on Lacan, I made this whole kind of like psychoanalytic framework that like the whole project stemmed from. And
Yeah.
that's just how I work. I think like I don't know if I, I think there's something in me from it, but also I think like I just developed an affinity for systematized thinking because I like studied social theory in
Yeah, yeah.
college. Um, but also like I struggle with decision making. So like that's how I work with my brain. Um, the other thing is for visual projects, I think it's really rare you find someone who works in the visual world who can just spontaneously imagine with no references. There's something about like the visual world, especially. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe every discipline we use references. I'm sure like, when you're mixing your music, you have mixed references, you have, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think like the resources that exist for like mood boarding or just like collecting visual material are great, whether you use Arena, whether you use do you say it Arena or Arena? Do you know actually?
I don't think is this like a program? I don't think I know about this.
It's ARE.NA. Um yeah, but like it's a way of just kind of like collecting visual and textual material and it's very flexible. Um the only drawback is that it's subscription based, but yeah, a lot of people use it. And then of course like a Pinterest. The drawback with Pinterest is that like, it's algorithmic. So it's homogenizing. And so I think
Hmm.
like using something like that, you want to be careful about making
Yeah.
sure that you're still like working with your own mind and not just like getting into this weird um I don't know. Yeah, the word that's coming up is self-cannibalizing, but like the
Hmm.
culture self-cannibalizing itself. Um, so yeah, I'm a huge fan of just like mood boarding through textual material, through visual material, and just like
Hmm.
coming up with a whole bunch of stuff from which to have ideas. But of course, like you need the structure of the idea to start, don't you? Um, Yeah, I think a lot about like the kinds of interactions I want my participants or listeners to have.
Hmm.
I think that helps. Yeah, is that enough information?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, yeah, because you mentioned having like a framework for diorama, and then my question from there is like, what exactly does a framework look like? And so one of the things you're talking about is like mood boarding. But then there
Yeah.
was something at the end which leads into something else that I think would be really fun to talk about, which is
Yeah.
like, okay, so we've got like a framework, there's like kind of some mood boarding. But then you mentioned needing a concept to begin with.
Mhm.
What do you mean by a concept to begin with?
Um, I mean, I guess that's the inspiration. That's the spark.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay, wait, I'll rephrase my question. How
yeah.
much is the concept to begin with, like, in the case of like like a payphone that has
Yeah. Yeah.
Arduino in it, how much
Yeah.
is it like I want to put Arduino in a payphone. I'm going to do some vision boarding to figure out what kind of payphone it should look like
Yeah.
versus like some sort of mood boarding that leads you to be like, what if I'm putting or like Arduino gear in a payphone?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally. Okay, I think for me, a lot of my like art ideas are like basically weird, funny ideas I have. Like one of the first things I did, yeah, with my first installation, one of the things my team and I worked on was I really wanted to make this thing called the rock drive, and we like
Hmm.
literally took rocks and drilled into them and like put USBs into them. Because yeah, I'm like interested in like physical data.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm also into like unusability. Like you can't really plug in the rock to your computer. Um, but the drive totally works. And on the drive, I like put a little manifesto, I put the song, I like whatever. Um, and that is something that like people resonate with.
Hmm.
But it's also just like something that I thought was interesting and kind of stupid. Um, with the yeah, and so okay, I'm realizing that like um I think something I really had to let go of in leaving Harvard and NEC is like basically like talking yourself out of your ideas. You
Hmm.
know, like I think that we could just go around all day, every day, like what is a good idea?
Yeah.
But like you intuitively know the ideas that are sticky for you,
Hmm.
and you don't have to know why. And like I think that is the artistic process, is like you just let yourself explore the ideas, and the idea kind of like it just yeah, it transpires on its own, and like and then you kind of like figure out what are all the meanings, what are the symbologies, whatever. Um,
Mm.
uh, I think because I've done both, like, you know, super experimental, like very avant-garde stuff, and I've done, LA pop world stuff. I think maybe the ideas that I have, um, there's some like analytical, like academic piece of it that like makes me interested in it, but there's also this very like pop art billboard aspect of what I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to do. Um, and maybe I'll walk away from that at some point. I mean, it makes me just the word billboard, it made me think about I think like someone a lot of people like me love is Caroline Polachek, of course. And when she was talking about her last record, Desire, I Want to Turn Into You, so different from the first record. The first record is like super narrativistic, like, about a divorce for sure. Second record, she describes in an interview as like basically just a series of like billboards and catchphrases, like kind of this anti-meaning thing. Um, but yeah, like the stickiness of an image, the stickiness of a feeling, the stickiness of desire. Um, so yeah, I think for me, yeah, there was like something about the interaction of a payphone. It had to be yellow, there had to be billboards. Um, yeah, like it was just the the stickiness, the imagery. I think something I'm getting better and better at in my artistic practice is like not getting so burdened by the analytical side of it and allowing myself to be more intuitive with like what the kind of image interaction piece of it is. And I
Hmm.
think like when I go to a museum and I see great art, it's that re like, I can't t like I've been to so many art walkthroughs at like random galleries where an artist is talking about their work and it's so overwrought. And and the artist is talking about their work and all of the meanings and the histories and whatever. And it basically like to me the work feels totally unrelated. Not that I have to like necessarily see the linkage. Um, but I think maybe what I'm sensing is like a lacking relationship to the material itself. And I feel like all great artists have this like incredible deep relationship with the form.
Hmm.
And it's from that with the form and the material. And
Hmm.
it's that relationship to the material that allows them to like make this whole world. Like I'm thinking about David Lynch, it's like his deep love of film and television is what allowed him to like
Yeah.
create all this like crazy interesting work. Um, so yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to get toward, is like
Yeah.
if my material is experienced, experiential, whatever, in this kind of like weird installation stuff I'm doing, then yeah, like I have to have that deep relationship with the material.
Yeah. Wow. This is so great. Actually, on the subject of like this phrase that you're using that I really like is this idea of like sticky ideas.
Mhm.
And I wasn't gonna bring up David Lynch, but then you did, so now we're there, which is
Should we
great.
talk about it?
Very well, just very briefly, one of the things that he has with like, you know, thinking about ideas as being like fishing. Like I read that book Catching the Big Fish when I was like 19 or
Mhm.
something, and then I
Yeah.
lost my copy. I'd love to reread it someday. But
Oh.
it's all good. I have way too many books anyway, so it's fine. But that idea of like, you have a lot of ideas, but an idea that keeps coming back is one that you love. And like,
Yeah.
so there's this like, if you love an idea, like it will stay, which is such an interesting and like useful counterbalance to one of the things that can come up at places like music school. I mean, especially a place like
Mhm.
NEC where we both went, which is very it's kind of a heady place, but it's an interesting place, and it's heady, but there isn't really like serious study of like
Mm.
philosophy or like literature. Like it's not like, I mean, there's like a liberal arts department for undergrad, but it's not like, as somebody who like went to liberal arts school for 2 years, like it's not comparable like
No,
at all.
it's
So
not.
it's in an interesting place in that way. And I'll move off the topic of NEC, which is a
No,
vibe and a
no, I
place, and
mean,
I learned so much from it. But
yeah.
but it's so like, I guess just the core of my where I was going with that is like, it's really easy if you know a little bit about how to have like a critical perspective,
Hmm.
but not like a full like understanding of how to have a critical perspective, to
Yeah.
just be like, oh, this means that I can like criticize any idea into the ground, and if I never do anything, then I win. I beat all the people who do flawed things, and then I don't
Yeah.
even have to make music. I just get to make fun of things, and then I'm the smartest one. And like, I just obviously, like, I mean, I wanted to make music, so that's just not, that doesn't work as a strategy for me. But this idea of like pursuing or like listening to the ideas that come back, thinking about the ideas that you love,
Hmm.
that's so interesting. And then when I get back, or to use this phrase, to come back to this phrase, like overwrought, one of the
Hmm.
things that I wanted to ask at the beginning is like, what does overwrought mean to you? Because that could mean a lot of different things. But one of the things that I'm
Hmm.
getting from this is also, this is so fun. This is so great. I love talking about this
This is
stuff.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta like, maybe I'll do conversations with people that aren't like as oriented towards like, because there's approachability is so great, but like
Yeah.
just kind of going like, this is what I think about all day, let's get really advanced. It's also really fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, so one of the things that's really interesting is that like you get all of this from studying in like music school,
Hmm.
or probably also other types of, school. You get all of this history and all
Yeah.
of this rigor from history, and all of this rigor that was used to make amazing things in the past.
Hmm.
But we are not the people who lived 50 years ago. And
Hmm.
if we're going to like show up honestly in our own lives, we can't just like take the rigor from 50 years ago or whatever, or any past avant-garde or any past like art movement or anything, and be like,
Yeah.
cool, if I just follow all of these rules, then I pass. It's like, that's
Yeah.
just not how it works. And so it's been really interesting for me. I haven't necessarily used the word overwrought, but like, is trying to get back to a place of love. And for a while, I
Hmm.
really kind of had to push away a lot of the rigor and be like, I'm just going to make dumb, naive stuff. And I don't even know what I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
can't justify it. And I had to be willing to release like caring about what a lot of people that I knew in past chapters of my life would think about it.
Yes.
And yet, what's been so cool is to see the types of rigor that I got from those past chapters that actually are things that I really care about,
Hmm.
come back, but in a way that doesn't feel limiting anymore. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm doing this because I care about it, and it lets me achieve this thing. Which
Hmm.
is usually not really like, oh, this type of chord or whatever. It usually goes like way deeper, and it's on some level of like, I don't know, presence, or it's like it's on levels that are harder to use language to describe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's been really cool to go through that process. And it sounds like one of the things that's going on with you is that there's like, when you're thinking about, like, I think you said something like the payphone has to be yellow, or there are supposed to be
Yeah.
billboards or something. But it's like when you let go of all of like the rules of education, which
Yeah.
are, I mean, for me, I'm glad that I got that when I was like 23, because I wanted it, and I'm from a very small town, and like,
Yeah.
there was not culture. I didn't grow up with any of this stuff around.
Yeah.
But in that process of like letting go of it, I think what you find on the other side is yourself, you know? So
Yes.
like, so it's cool that there's like a rigor, but it's like it's your own thing. And I guess the rigor is like, these don't feel like publicity stunts or anything. And the
Yeah.
stuff that works as like short form content on Instagram doesn't feel like it's short form content on Instagram. It feels like it's like, I actually want to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I actually care about it. And it really
Yeah.
has like an artistic vector. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really special. I hope there's a question in there somewhere, but maybe it's just me relating to what you said.
I know. I'm like, uh, yeah, what was the question in there? I feel like you did ask a question, but I think I let go of it at some
Oh
point.
yeah, well, so there was the question of this idea of like things being overwrought.
Oh, yeah, like what does that mean to me exactly?
Yeah, if we want to keep
Mhm.
following this thread.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I have tons of other questions too.
yeah, totally. Man, yeah. I think I guess I think it is sorry, I'm trying to like consolidate a bunch of versions of this in my head because
Yeah,
like
it's all
I
good.
can
Yeah.
feel it with lyrics, I can feel it with music, I can even feel it with like I mean certainly with production. Production can get so overwrought. I can feel it with like recording styles and like the ways takes sound. Um I think it's unnecessary complexity. Um because I'm definitely not anti-complexity. I think your music is very complex, but it feels organic to me. Um, uh, but yeah, like I go to a show and I can hear the levels of the work that has been done on the lyrics. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, obviously we don't know, but we do know
I think
as
so. Yeah,
songwriters.
I feel like as you're talking, I'm following, but I don't
Yeah.
know if I understand the full idea yet, but I'm on the ride.
Yeah, I guess I think, sorry, I've never tried to articulate this before, so I'm sorry if
Yeah,
it's
no,
coming
it's all
across as
good.
like very nebulous.
Yeah, this actually happens to me with my students quite often too, where they'll ask a
Yeah,
question and then I'm just like, wait, I have to think for like 10 seconds before I say anything. And then
a
it's
joy of
fine, but there's like a how do I even begin to start talking about this
yeah,
thing? So anyway,
yeah,
I know the feeling and it's all good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, such a pleasure also to be forced to think through these things. Yeah, I think um, yeah, I think a journey that I've been on is it's yeah, it's an idea of how things should be. And I think when I first started making recorded music, it was like, because I wasn't used to my voice being captured in that way. It's like you're afraid to just like let your voice be captured.
Hmm.
And the more and more I record my voice, the more I'm okay with that that necessary rawness to really communicate something and
Hmm.
the imperfection and like, the sense rubbing up against each other, but like that's necessary. Um, and yeah, I think it's something I'm attuned to in like a variety of media. Like I feel it when I when I look at art too. I don't know. It's just like I guess yeah, like when I can I feel so, I don't know if I sound totally insane, but I
No, it
just
just
feel
sounds like
like
yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine.
I feel like I can, I can hear a lyric and I can tell when it's been thought through in a way that isn't necessary. Um, and or just when it's overdone or a little too logical. I mean, and yes, okay. As I'm saying this all, I'm like, yes, there's a huge function of taste in this, but but I don't know. I mean, I think lyrics can be intellectual but not overwrought.
Hmm.
I really do. Um, and part of it is that like maybe with lyrics specifically, like you have so much to play with. You have the actual meaning of the text and the logics in the text. You have sound. You have the way sound sounds in different parts of your register and all this stuff. And, I can very much hear when like a person has just totally done it based on the meaning of the lyrics,
Hmm.
rather than sort of like understanding how the the consonants and vowels sit in their voice.
Hmm.
And then they're missing that whole dimension, and then it just like it feels overwrought to me because they haven't engaged with this like very important organic piece of it, which is just how their body feels and sounds doing it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yes, but yeah, I think It's a good challenge. I need to find a better way to articulate this, but hopefully I've said enough stuff about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think well, I mean also because you mentioned like my music feeling like there's like there's like complexity, but it doesn't feel like it feels intuitive in a way or
Mhm.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, and this like it's funny because there's the way that I think about art and when I'm making it, and then there's the way that I talk about it when I'm teaching. And
Mhm.
I really try to speak very clearly and give people very clear definitions and like next steps and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
tends to work really well. And yet, like when I'm making, I'm just like sitting with questions,
Mm.
which is because questions are more generative for me. So it's kind of funny moving back and forth between these logics. But I'm going to use a very just like question oriented thing, which is that in order for me to like make something and really make something and sign off on it, there just has to be a lot of like love in it. Like I have to really believe in love and believe in like every decision. And so there's taste as a sort of like filter
Mm.
again. And I think there is sort of like a music school overwrougtness, whether it's like in
Mhm.
jazz school with like people, like learning about major seven sharp 11 chords, and then just every chord is a major seven sharp 11 chord, or being like, oh, they don't even have to be in the same key. You can just be like B major seven sharp 11, C major seven sharp 11, B flat major sharp 11. And it's like, and then you can like shred in Lydian mode or whatever. And then you get like modern battle jazz kind of, like, so that's like a type of like learning the rules. But I think there's this sort of student work where you're like, or very music schooly student work where you're learning about all of these parameters that can get some sort of result. And then there's
Mhm.
this sort of like obsessive tinkering with parameters. And I think there's a useful sort of like learning process that comes with that, where you tinker with the parameters and you're like, oh, it sounds like this if I do this, but then like I think there has to be some to make work that's supposed to not just be like student work, but is like something that has more, maybe more like grown up artistic, value or something. I think taste kind of has to win out. And then there's the question of like how developed is somebody's taste? Like how much
Yes.
art and music have they taken in, and have they done the work to like develop opinions about it and stuff like that? And then there's
Yes.
also like how far can you get with tons of taste and like zero technique? And so
Yeah.
I think it all just kind of fits together to be like it's a journey and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
think like when it's like um either technique devoid of taste, or like this just sort of like obsessively playing with tons of tiny parameters of sound instead of seeing the bigger artistic picture.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot there that can kind of, it just feels like learning, I guess, to me. But my kind of pathway out of this, which is it's a really intense phrase. I can't believe I'm talking about it. Like I don't know, like my
Yeah.
the create interesting music thing. Like I really care about making it like approachable to people who are kind of like
Yeah.
intermediate and care. And but one of my doorways out of this whole like music schooly thing was this idea that for a while I described as like existential thrust, which is like it has to have some kind of like force or like vitality or like movement in the world. And there are so many things. Or I think you're frozen. Oh no. Okay, I think you're back. I think there was a lag for a second there.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a
But oh wait,
sorry. Well,
was everything okay?
and what is going on? Oh, sorry.
I'm mostly hearing you cut out for a second there.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think
Okay.
we're okay.
Sweet. But yeah, so there was this idea of like existential thrust. And
Hmm.
like what does that mean? I guess to focus on like the thrust component, there has to have some role in the world. Like it has to exist for a reason, like in relation to either in relation to its time or in
Yeah.
relation to a person who is existing in their
Hmm.
own time. And I think
Hmm.
existentially, like I think it just pertains to like it has to like matter to like life in some way, which is like in order for me to like unpack this in like a step by step like teacherly fashion, it would take me like a really long time, and I'd have to kind of make it up as I go. um
Yeah.
but like I think there's just a gap between things that I was seeing that were very skilled and even were like tasteful, and that it was made by people who really knew what they were doing and had a lot of opinions about art, but just were still rehashing avant-gardes from like 50 years ago or 40 years ago or something like that. And although it had all these other components that I liked, and I could even have a nice like sensory experience listening to it,
Mhm.
and I could remember how exciting it was to like learn about some of these movements, like when I was in my earlier 20s or whatever.
Yes.
Um, it doesn't have any function in the world. And I think even in avant, even the most out of the out stuff, and I feel like I'm in a funny position where I'm like, I can be very into very directly accessible things. Like, I mean, I'm a songwriter and like a producer and stuff like that, but I also really care about like trying to see what the outer edges of the avant-garde mean in like the 2020s. Like it has
Yeah.
to have some, it has to have some relation to the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I've made sense of that. Um,
Yeah. I like the word when you were saying yeah, the word thrust, not to be too like directly associative, but like, like it to me, it brings up this thing of like libidinal energy. And I mean, I really believe that like this kind of libidinal energy thing is really important to like us doing our creative work. Going back to your question of like, how do you actually start? Um, yeah, I think it's like it's allowing yourself to hone your libidinal energy for a variety of things that you need to do in your life. I don't know. We live in such like a strange and challenging world, and we have all these ways of kind of like managing our dopamine and managing our anxiety. Um, but yeah, like if you want to make art, you have to channel it there. Rather than allowing yourself to like just let it go or go toward something else. Yeah, sorry. Also, as we're talking about this, and like, uh, was it thrust of vitality or vitality thrust? What was
Existential
existential
trust.
thrust?
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's funny because I depicted it more as like, or I'd felt it more as like some sort of like, I wasn't really thinking about it sexually, although it sounds sexual, but I was imagining it as like this more just like this impact of like it hits you and you're like,
Yeah.
it's like kinetic in a
Yeah, yeah,
way,
yeah.
which is
Well,
still, yeah, but yeah. Sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
that's my understanding of libidinal
Oh, yeah.
personally. Obviously,
Okay.
I know like there's a sexual connotation, but for me, like libidinal force is everywhere. And it really is this kind of like potential energy that you can use for whatever. Yeah, but it is interesting. We like live in such a sort of like depressed, sexless society. And however you create the potential energy for yourself, like you must find your ways to do this in order to make your art.
Yeah. Wow, this is crazy. I mean, it also, it's interesting 'cause I know that the this idea of like libidinal, that word, like libidinal
Yeah.
stuff pertains to Lacan.
Mm.
And I have not really read Lacan, although I'm kind of a big like Deleuzian. And I might have to bring us back down to like earth a little bit here, although we should totally continue this conversation. Maybe if I either just by hanging out, or if I don't
Yeah.
know, ever do a podcast that's just about like art, which would be sick. But
Podcast too.
yeah, so to kind of like come back to
Wait,
things that I would be, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just like want to make sure I say this out loud because I just like have this book next to me, and as we are talking about this, I keep thinking about things in relation to this book. This is the little like Brian Eno
Oh, yeah.
coffee table book.
Cool.
Um, uh, but like one of his big things, which just continues to resonate with me, is that like basically the most radical thing you can do in your life is like figure out what you actually like. Um, and I guess that also feels like a piece of this conversation, that like the practice of figuring out what you actually like, allowing yourself to continue liking those things and exploring those things, because I don't know, our tastes are so just like weird and moderated and stuff. And you just you have to spend the time on it. You have to develop your taste. You have to like take in a bunch of stuff. Way easier said than done. Like I'm saying this so emphatically, but it's like so hard to really allow yourself to do and set aside time to do, you know?
Mhm.
Um, anyway, just to say that out loud, that's all.
Yeah. Wow. This is great. Yeah. I mean, I love, I know that kind of from the more like out music parts of the
Mhm.
world, like people will, I've heard some people kind of hating on, a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'm not, I'm like, I'm so into it. Like, so Yeah, that's cool.
He's
I
a
want to read
wonderful
that
guy.
book. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then also on the subject of taste, like, I mean, it's such like a, it's weird how like Rick Rubin has kind of like become controversial in the ways that he has been recently. And I don't really have that many opinions about that relative to what I've gotten from Rick Rubin as a person that exists. Like, I'm not like, do I think it's great that he's like interviewing Peter Thiel? Like that's not really related to what I wanted to get from thinking about Rick Rubin
yeah.
necessarily. But that book, The Creative Act,
Mhm.
or something, it's called something like that. It's
Yeah,
like yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I thought that was tremendously helpful, and it was really clarifying for me as far as like simplifying things, even after I'd made all of this really like complex, like very dense, notated music. And it's been so helpful for me in my time since then. So those things like, yeah, from these just like the great producers of like the late 20th century and early 21st century. Like it's yeah, Rick Rubin, like there's so much good stuff there. So
For sure.
um yeah, okay. So we're like I think we're slightly over an hour. There's one more topic that I'd love to get back to,
Yes.
which is the voice. And so not the TV show, obviously. Um, we're having fun. That was a dumb joke, but we're having fun. Okay, so one of the things that I'd written down when I was thinking about questions and topics to get into is that I think there are like many different kinds of songwriters, and I think I'm the kind of songwriter who really started by like writing songs and playing guitar. And I mean, I also started recording like relatively early on. Like I was trying to figure out how to like make demos from probably around the same time that I started playing guitar. And like I started working in a DAW when I was like a sophomore in high school. And so it was like pretty early on. And it seems like I feel like I can say this. It seems like you're the kind of songwriter who started off by being a vocalist. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so without, I mean, we could talk about any of these things for like 6 hours, which is really fun.
Yeah.
But I guess without talking about it for like 6 hours, I'd be curious to hear about like things that you remember about your process of developing as a vocalist from like a more technical perspective. And maybe like kind of a doorway into talking about this is that I remember one like threshold that I crossed like in my development as a vocalist, which I didn't start taking really seriously until like the pandemic. Like I was
Mhm.
kind of like what I've heard described as like a microphone singer before that, where like I worked a lot on like phrasing and I like transcribed singers and stuff, but I was never like doing warm-ups or anything. So I
Yeah.
started doing warm-ups in like March 2020, probably like
Mhm.
right after the pandemic hit. I was like, well, I've got time now. Um, and like I got like pandemic unemployment payments for like more than it was like more than 2 years or something. So maybe yeah, maybe like a year and a half. It was crazy. So that was great, and that like made my move to New York possible. But anyway, so I started doing these vocal warm-ups. And I remember it like it was like in November 2020. So it's probably 6 months, maybe a little over 6 months later, I could like just begin to belt. And like I remember the first few times that I had that like feeling, and because I'm like I try to pay attention to all the little details of what's going on when I'm doing anything so that I can like understand it. Because I'm a very like understanding oriented person. Like I remember there's just this feeling of like being able to like relax some like
Yeah.
muscles in my throat, and I was able to like slide my chest voice up past the point where it would usually break. But
Yeah.
it felt like this sort of act of just like relaxing.
Hmm.
And it kind of blew my mind. And I remember telling my friends about it at that time because
Yeah.
it wasn't this like forceful thing. It was yeah, and so just like as far as events like that where you maybe cross some threshold and like your understanding of like what your voice could do like changed. Like is there anything that you remember? It's also weird asking people about this stuff if you learned how to do this and you were like 9,
You're right.
because like I was like 26. Very
No, but
very different ages.
but I love it. It's like a yeah, it's a very different experience. So like I started singing seriously when I was 6. Um, and yeah, I guess just a bit about my vocal history. Like my whole weird story is that my like preschool music teacher told my parents that I could remember melodies, and then they were like, "Oh, should we put her in piano lessons?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll teach her." But like he didn't teach me classical music. He like put the real book in front of me and like I sight
Oh
read My Funny Valentine. Like that was like my first. And so
wow.
it was just like, and then it turned out that he ran this like children's jazz choir, which sounds corny as hell, but it wasn't. Instead, he had us learning bebop heads in unison, and I started that when I was 6. Like, very weird.
That's
Um,
crazy. That's
so
amazing though.
it
Yeah.
was, it was like, I, it, yeah, I mean, obviously it was totally normal to me, but like, it was an untraditional way of learning music. And, just to go back to the very beginning of this conversation, not dumbing things down, I think um that is just like my deepest belief with basically everything, intellectual, musical, artistic, whatever. I believe like you give people the complex material and they will rise to it. They will like, yeah, and so similarly, like I think I just yeah, I was gifted this thing of like there is no music that is too complex for you to sing.
Mhm.
Um from an early age. That being said, like because I was singing those kinds of melodies, like I didn't learn how to belt, unlike people who probably like learn how to sing in cars listening to pop music, and just like figuring that out. Like I had to learn that in college.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think there are all these different ways of using your voice, but what you talk about in terms of like all of it, the basis of everything is relaxing in your body, relaxing here, relaxing here. Um, I think the thing that just never ceases to amaze me is the way in which every part of the mechanism is connected, and like, massaging your jaw before you sing, massaging your jaw before you go to bed. Um, something that I know I struggle with is like, uh, looseness in my neck and like this whole area. I don't know if it's just like an anxiety thing, but I just hold a lot of tension here.
Mhm.
And actually, I remember like Theo Bleckmann when I was a kid. Um, my habit when I used to sing would be to like I would hold my throat like this. And he was like, "Why are you choking yourself when you're singing?" Um, I don't know, but yeah, that's what I used to do. So yeah, I think relaxing, stretching. I think there are like lots of kind of um yeah, like psychosomatic things you can do with your body as well, which you conventionally learn in voice lessons. Like, when you're going up high, if you sort of like lunge into your knees, that can help you sort of like displace the tension. I
Mhm.
think that is something that I learned from Dominique Eade that was so helpful. Did you ever take lessons with her?
I didn't. I wish I had taken. There were a lot of things that I wish I had taken seriously earlier. It's all good, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was in one of her. I was in two of her ensembles my first year at
Oh.
NEC then, which
I
was
mean,
cool.
she's a genius. She's like, yeah, the way she inhabits her voice and her body, I just learned, and she's someone who is like so kind of in touch with her whole embodied system. I learned so much from her. I really wish I hadn't been going to Harvard at the same time because I just like was not able to soak up as much as I wanted to. But
Mhm.
but yeah, basically like I think the way she talked about it that I found so helpful is like it's not like you have to be totally loose.
Mhm.
Because to phonate you do need some tension. Like literally your vocal cords are going like this.
Mhm.
So it's just all about kind of like figuring out what are the balances of tension and release going on in your body when you're doing the various things you want to do. But yeah, certainly when you're belting, you have this tremendous tension in your diaphragm, and you want all of this to be like really chill and really loose.
Mhm.
Um, I think another vocal concept that is really useful. So like I'm one of those people that believes everyone can sing.
Mhm.
I really don't believe it's like for specific people.
Mhm.
Um, and I believe speaking is very close to singing. And I
Mhm.
think that's a useful concept.
Mhm.
Um, with singing, we get so bound up in like sounding good or like good tone or whatever. But the truth is, like when we shout across the room, we're belting.
Mhm.
And so just kind of engaging with that sort of thing and engaging with, healthy speaking, of course, but like
Mhm.
engaging with just what we do every day. as like
Mhm.
allowing us to phonate well and phonate healthily from our diaphragms. Um, yeah, maybe those are some starting things.
Yeah. Okay. One more kind of quick question on this subject.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're talking to a songwriter who isn't like an incredibly trained, like they're intermediate stage maybe as like a guitarist, and by that that's maybe a term that's outside of the scope of this conversation, but they're taking it seriously. They're not a total beginner. They don't have everything together, but they can sing like a perfect fifth, and they know what a perfect fifth is.
Hmm.
But maybe it's like a little bit sharp or something if they just make that jump. Like
Yeah.
if you were talking to somebody who was kind of at that stage, would you have any tips for like things that maybe they should be doing on a daily basis that would help them?
Yeah. I mean, really just more like doing healthy vocal exercises every day.
Hmm.
And don't worry about being singerly. I think like exercises that force you to resonate, like doing these sorts of things,
Hmm.
whatever, and like allowing yourself to get nasal with it and just getting used to like resonating well.
Hmm.
That will obviously just give you so much more control. These kinds of very like pop vocal ways of airy singing are really hard, and
Hmm.
I would say they're not for um beginners. I mean, if you've learned to sing that way from the start, like that's amazing. But for most people, it's like really hard to control your intonation when you have a lot of air going through your system.
Yeah.
Um, um, One of my favorite Dominique tricks for working on intonation is if you are working on a song, um, do the whole melody resonating, whatever it is. Then go through and sing the whole song just with the vowels. So like ah, yeah, yeah, you know.
Hmm.
Um, then go through and sing the whole thing just on the consonants. So all the phonated consonants or all the vocalized consonant, mm, mm, whatever,
Oh yeah.
just going through. Um, and that is like the best way to practice intonation on a song. I can't even tell you how locked in you will feel once you practice, just going through the notes, resonating, go through the vowels, and get really precise about the intonation. Either
Hmm.
sit with a piano and, yeah, like I think this is another big thing. If like having access to a real piano is obviously the best, but just like feeling what it is like to resonate fully in tune with another instrument,
Hmm.
just experience the sound in the room, and like really feeling that in your body, and it'll just like the more you do that, the more you'll be able to calibrate in real time what's going on. Like I'm not. I am someone who like really has had to work on that over time, and
Hmm.
I don't think I'm like I don't think I'm like naturally an amazing singer. I
Mm.
think I just like love the practice.
Yeah.
Um, like I've known people, we all know people who are naturally amazing singers, right? Like they grew up singing in church, they can just like fucking go. Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Cool. Wow. This is great. I wish we could talk for like another 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we probably will sometime,
Yes.
whether it's recorded or not. So that's great. Laila, thanks for doing this. I'm so stoked to see what types of conversations. I'm so stoked to see what types of conversations happen with students as people get a chance to work with you in the workshop that's coming up. So yeah, this is great. And yeah, talk to you soon. Thank you for being here.
Talk to you soon. Thank you for having me, Cole. Yay.
Yay. Awesome. All
Okay.
right. See ya.
Bye. See ya.